Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Michael Robinson, and today we're going to be talking about preparing to meet the future. If you're like me, you're probably amazed by the rapid technological advancement in our civilization within a very short period of time. I remember growing up knowing nothing about computers nor the internet, nor cell phones, nor talking devices like Siri, nor ATM machines, online apps, and Skype, you name it. But they're all part of our lives today. And quite frankly, I cannot imagine living without these tools. That seems to make our lives so much easier. Yet the future seems even more fascinating, just thinking about the potential that lies ahead for humanity, the discovery of new worlds, the endless possibilities of tech advancements, and the undiscovered concepts that might make Einstein's theory of relativity obsolete, right? So today we're going to discuss these possibilities with my guest, who is a futurist and also one of the world's leading experts in the field of emerging technology. His name is Gray Scott. Gray is the founder and CEO of SeriousWonder.com and also a professional member of the World Future Society. He's also the co-author of the book, The Future of Business, Critical Insights into a Rapidly Changing World from 60 Future Thinkers. Welcome to the show, Gray.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. Let's talk about new emerging technology that is on the horizon. What's expected to come out this year that we've not seen or heard about?
Well, I can tell you that one of the areas that is getting a lot of excitement is wireless energy transfer. This is actually something that was shown at... Yeah, exactly. So Nikola Tesla, the ideas of Nikola Tesla. So wireless energy transfer is actually something that we can do, but it's not in the commercial market yet. So what we're going to see in the next couple of years are devices that allow you to augment your power usage and how you collect and harvest power and energy. So for example, imagine energy being distributed by a device in your apartment or your home, and you collect that energy through a battery that collects wireless energy in your phone. So you never have to plug in ever again. So it's just constantly filling the battery up throughout the day. So wireless energy transfer and wireless energy harvesting is actually the next big thing.
So should we be concerned about the potential ramifications to the human species? I mean, we're talking about energy, right? So what if our atoms are being zapped by this? Could it be cancer causing? What is the dangers to humanity?
Well, everything that I've read so far says that this is fairly safe, and the studies show that this is safe. But you know, we're bombarded by waves of information all the time. I mean, there are things in the room with you right now, constantly. So that research that's being done on whether wireless energy transfer is safe, so far looks good. The thing that interests me is that it's going to change not only how we collect energy, but it's going to change what the world looks like. So imagine if wireless energy is ubiquitous, no more power lines. You're not going to have transformers the way that you see them on the sides of the highways. You're not going to see these enormous industrial spaces that look really bad visually. So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's going to first change the structure of our planet, and then the way the world looks, the way our cities look. You're not going to have power lines on your property anymore. I mean, so you can see just one little adjustment is going to change the world, really.
So where would the source of energy be coming from?
Well, that's the question. So a lot of what we're thinking right now is that the energy itself is primarily going to be solar, wind, environmental issues that we're having right now are causing us to have to rethink where energy comes from. So more than likely, if the system is set up properly, you'll have solar power collecting energy and then sending that out wirelessly to people constantly. So no more wires. Very few power plants the way we think of them today. So the power plants will actually be solar farms, and the age of even the battery, thinking of the battery itself, will sort of disappear, because those things will be built into our devices so that it's constantly collecting wireless energy, and you never have to plug in a new battery. So that's just one thing. I think the second thing we can probably talk about, and more importantly than energy itself, is AI. And we can talk a little bit more about that.
I plan on covering that with you. What country is taking the leadership role where this is concerned?
With the wireless
With the wireless energy, yes.
Well, right now, the first company that's working on this, the one that showed at CES, was OSA.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it. And they have a system basically where it's an adapter that you add to your phone, and inside of the adapter is a wireless battery that collects energy, collects wireless energy. So right now, that's one of the first companies. I would expect that China is probably going to take the lead on this, just because of our political situation right now, and maybe Dubai. You might see some things going on in Dubai in that space, but I would say China and India actually are going to be the two that are probably going to lead that.
You mentioned artificial intelligence. Let's talk a bit about that, because that is certainly a fascinating concept for many of us. And I want to talk about it from many different perspectives. I want to talk about what it really is, what it potentially can become, and how, as a society, we should be prepared for it, because we are living in a world where if robots are going to begin thinking on their own, then they become an entity within our society. So should we be thinking of policies and procedures by which we handle these things? But let's start from the beginning. Artificial intelligence is certainly becoming a big conversation these days. You can take the leadership where that's concerned. How is it evolving from what we have heard to what it is right now?
So what's happening right now, which I think is shocking a lot of people, I talked about this 5 years ago, where I said that eventually we would start to see the emergence of self-aware machines and self-aware AI. And we are starting to see small little pieces of self-awareness sort of rise and emerge within this field. Now, you can debate whether that is true human self-awareness or consciousness or whatever word you want to use. We can debate that, whether that's authentic or not. But what's happening is that the mimicry, the biomimicry of human consciousness and human awareness is starting to show itself now. So where this was computation in the beginning, now has become conscious digital consciousness in a way. And it's just the emergence, it's just the beginning, it's just the beginning of this. But I expect within the next 15 to 20 years, we're going to see machines that look and act so human, whether that's a software program or whether it's a humanoid robot. I think we're going to see mimicry, human conscious, and the mimicry of that so perfectly that it's going to be hard for us to distinguish whether that is a real human or not. I mean, chat bots can already fool people. A lot of companies use chat bots for their customer service. So we're just starting to see that emergence of the biomimicked sort of consciousness.
I went to an event a couple of months ago called SIMTI, and one of the leaders of Google was a speaker. He was a keynote speaker, and he was talking about the fact that the idea is to have artificial intelligence teaching each other or itself, which is an interesting concept, because it sort of loses the control of the human being, right? Because if computers are now talking to each other and teaching each other bits of information, connecting algorithms or whatever you want to call it, then at some point they're going to evolve beyond our awareness. That's what I'm thinking, or that's how I perceive it. What are your thoughts on that, and should we be concerned?
Well, we should be concerned because what's happening is, and I'll sort of take this sort of a naturalist direction. We are in the gestation period for developing a new species right now. And so you need to be concerned about that. We should be concerned that we are developing what could potentially turn into a new form of consciousness. Mm-hmm. It may not be human, but it may have self-awareness, and it may be a digital self-awareness. But if it can look out into the world and assess the environment and make decisions and have desires and create personhood for itself, then you really need to pay attention to that. And we need to understand the ethics of that, how it will feel, how it will behave in response to our consciousness and our behaviors. So we need to be concerned with the ethics of AI. We need to be concerned with how fast this is moving. And we also need to be concerned about looking inward. You know, I've said that the future is a portal inward, and that is where we're headed. We are headed towards mirroring our own consciousness. That's really what AI is. It is a mirror of us. And so there is not, there's not going to be one utopian version of AI or dystopian version of AI. I think there are going to be multiple versions of this type of consciousness. Now, you mentioned, a second ago, you mentioned AI that teach other AI. Well, we've reached that level now. That's already starting to happen. So you have artificial intelligence systems that are teaching other sub-AI systems not only what they know, but they're adding and teaching them how to learn, and also teaching them how to teach other AI. So you get in this sort of almost like a blockchain of information where one AI says, okay, here's what I know, and I'm going to teach you how to teach another AI as well. So we're starting to see that. So yes, we should be concerned.
And of course, as they're able to reason on their own outside of our consciousness, I guess we should be thinking of the practicality from a legal perspective, from a social perspective, a moral perspective. Would it be too soon for us as a country to begin thinking of laws and guidelines by which we should be operating AI? Because nobody is talking about it when you think about it, right? It's something that is already evolving in our world, but no one is talking about what that means. So shouldn't we be opening the conversation from a political perspective, from a legal perspective, on how we should handle situations moving forward?
Well, we should. I was invited last year by the Supreme Court of South Korea to speak at a conference on this subject. Their question for us, I was on a panel of 7 people, and they were really concerned whether AI was going to replace them. They were concerned whether AI would replace the judicial system and judges. And I said to them, frankly, eventually it will. And so that is a remarkable statement when you think about it, that an artificially intelligent computer algorithm could hold our fate in its hands. And so there are people talking about this. I mean, futurists have been talking about this for a very long time. I mean, from the earliest science fiction writers, we have been talking about the fact that eventually some sort of automaton, sort of humanoid machine would rise up and find itself we would find ourselves face to face with some sort of machine consciousness. And so we are facing the edge of that horizon now. So there are people talking about it. There are ethical concerns, and there are people that have started to say we need to have some sort of ethical, moral, and even legal guidelines for this. Here's the problem with this. That is like trying to capture the ocean with your hands. It's already a bit late for this because a lot of AI is open source, and people can also hack into these systems.
Right.
So the cat's sort of out of the bag here. I mean, we have gotten into a space now where AI is in the hands of so many people that I'm not sure that you could stop it. What I do think we could do is start implementing some sort of guidelines that the designers for these programs should adhere to, especially if they're corporations, and how they behave and how what they do with our data and what kind of relationship we have with them.
Yeah.
So that is something we can start talking about.
Right. I think a lot of people, when you think about AI, you think about it as being an autonomous structure, whether it's a robot or something of that sort. But what you're saying is that AI is actually in our computers, in our infrastructure already, which is a very interesting concept, right? Because most people who are listening to my show are not thinking of AI from that perspective, that it's actually in the infrastructure of buildings and the internet and mining and sorting data together and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. You're right. I mean, it's in our pockets. It's in our homes. If you have an Echo, or if you have Siri, or if you have any of the smart home assistants, you have AI in your home. And a lot of people now are starting to implant chips into their bodies. And so eventually we're going to have AI inside of our bodies and inside of our minds eventually too. So it is something that's becoming ubiquitous. I mean, I've said before that AI will be as ubiquitous, and it will be as ubiquitous as electricity. I mean, it will be everywhere. So, it's something we should definitely look at as a resource, but it also should be something we look at as something to be monitored and try to pay attention to. Now, just for your viewers to understand, how amazing this technology has become, there's a technology, it's called the digital twin. And a lot of you can use this in a lot of industrial scenarios. So for example, GE uses what's called a digital twin to simulate a version of true real world assets. And so for example, what I mean is you can have a simulation of an airplane engine, and in real time, because of the IoT, the Internet of Everything, you can monitor those systems of that engine and know exactly when certain parts need to be replaced. And that simulated version is called a digital twin. So what I've said is that we're actually headed towards having digital twins of us. So it starts in the industrial phase, but I think what's happening is eventually we will have digital twins, and those digital twins will run on a platform that is run by AI. So you can see that it's not so much that it's just real world tangible issues, that it's affecting and will affect us as humans.
Right, absolutely. Very, very fascinating conversation. The question that I was going to ask you earlier was, do you think that we're somewhat behind technologically? Because decades ago we had the Jetsons, right, flying cars. And I haven't seen any cars flying around anytime soon. Is there something that happened that sort of short-stepped our technological advancement, even though we are doing quite well?
Well, I think there is, and I think Buckminster Fuller and Nikola Tesla, both experienced the effect of industry and people in power wanting to keep the status quo. And so there was a little bit of that. We've suffered from a lot of greed. We've suffered from suppression of innovation for a very long time. And I think the birth of the internet was really the moment that we cracked open that space. And now innovation is sort of flooding out of that space and into the world. So the internet had a lot to do with how fast things are changing now. Now, I will say about the flying car thing, because of course, as a futurist, everyone asked me about the flying car. Uber actually has a quadcopter program that they're basically flying cars. They take off vertically. They look like drones, and they basically take off vertically, carrying maybe one or two people. And they have a program set to start very soon. So don't be surprised. And I think Dallas, LA and Dubai, they were going to try this, and I know that Dubai actually has flying police vehicles now. So even though this is something that people have talked about since the '60s and said, "Where's my flying car?" It's actually here now. So don't be surprised in the next year if you start seeing this technology literally take off.
Here in the United States?
I would say so. I think you're going to see it in Dallas. I think that's one of the pilot programs. And I think in LA is another pilot program that Uber's thinking about working with. But you have to also remember, people like to disrupt industries. So you're going to have startups that are going to try to get there first. So once one person does it, you're going to have startups that are going to try to beat Uber to the punch. So you know, if the money's behind it, which I think it is, because we're also sick of sitting in traffic in major cities, if the money's there, the innovation will follow. Yes.
Very good. You know, I'm thinking about the generation that's coming up. Obviously, they're going to have access to more resources than you and I did. How should parents prepare their children to handle the evolving world of technology in the future? Should we be learning certain things when we go to school and colleges and universities that probably you and I never thought about, you know, decades ago?
I do. I think that we need to have schools, especially elementary schools even now, that have robotics programs, that have code programs. I think there are millions of jobs right now, literally millions of jobs in cybersecurity that cannot be filled because we don't have the technical skills and the people to fill them. So it's not that the jobs aren't there. It's just that the skills we haven't paid attention to the skill set, and we haven't prepared for the future. This is actually one of the things that, as a futurist, every futurist I talk to, we all say the same thing again and again, that we need to prepare for the future because it is going to happen whether you like it or not. And so ignoring the future will not make it go away. We all end up in the future if we're lucky. And so part of what I would say, some suggestions I've been giving are to start locally and put pressure on your communities and your schools to bring in robotics developers and bring in coders and set up, even if it's a small course for the kids, because I think they're hungry for it. They actually really like it. They really love the idea of coding. They love robots, and that is the future. So we really need to have those skills in the next 15 years.
Well, I will say the future is here already. I thank you so very much, Grace Scott, for being with us and sharing your insight. It's a lot to digest, right? So thank you again for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My best to you. I'm Michael Robinson. This is your time. Use it wisely.